Well, I don't do speeches. If you have questions, there might be some answers coming. Yes.
You sometimes, testing, I've heard you sometimes say in this process of awakening, there is a moment of God's grace descending. And I just wonder, after hearing other people speak about this and thinking about it myself, why something that is our birthright, something that is our innate nature, what is it about this kind of luck of the draw, if you will, that some people might be bestowed with this grace of God and others maybe not, when this is something that is our true nature, each and every one of us?
In fact, at this lottery, everybody wins at the end. So your question comes from the hypothesis. Is it not too loud? If there is some feedback, if you could lower the volume a little bit. Enough so that people can hear me in the back, yes? Good. That there are many individuals, some in ignorance and some who are in knowledge, but that itself is a dualistic view. It is itself not our experience. In fact, there is not a multiplicity of beings. There is only one single being playing all these parts. Everybody, in fact, at every moment, is exercising their freedom. Nobody forces us to believe to be separate entities. And there is no compelling evidence that this consciousness, which is hearing my words here, is limited to a single individual, that it is separate. In other words, that which is our real nature, not our human nature construed to be a body and a mind, but our real nature, that which is hearing these words. There is no evidence that this consciousness is a prisoner of this body or of this mind. My teacher once said, the mind is a cage, but if you look inside, you'll find no prisoner. You see, and after all, if we enjoy playing this game of being separated and limited, who am I to put an end to the play? I would be a party pooper. I mean, ignorance is great fun. People who are in it, they complain, but in fact they love complaining. So they have great fun complaining. You know, it's like the story of this guy who was hitting He was committed, right? Hammering on his head. And he was asked, why are you doing that? Because when I stop, it feels good. That's the story of ignorance. So you see, for the vantage point of wisdom, ignorance is not a problem. And there is not a mission to convert people for their own sake and liberate them from ignorance. That's a mistaken view. Because to see ignorance as a problem is kind of missing the mark. Ignorance is part of nature. Like the bad guys are part of the theatrical play or of the movie. A movie without bad guys is kind of bland. So ignorance is the spice of life. So you could ask, what are you doing here? And why are you speaking? And the answer is simple. I'm here because I was invited to come. And because being from the south of France, I like to speak. You know that, huh?
I have a tough time to shut up with a mic in my hand. Come on.
Yes, I have some Italian genes. They look like spaghetti under the microscope.
I've had a great insight this weekend. SAND is all about science and non-duality, and I sat patiently starting Thursday morning listening to all these PhDs and quantum physicists, and at the end of their presentation, they were all arguing with one another and disagreeing and saying they weren't any closer to understanding what the nature of consciousness. And the room was full. So then I started going to the other presentations, which are more the non-duality, not as many people, but I'm feeling love, cooperation, solutions. And if I look at the sum total of scientific achievement in this world today, they're responsible for the problem we have, the danger that we have. I'm not sure I want to give those scientists permission to continue to do what they're doing.
They are playing too. I mean, science is great fun. And in and by itself, it's neither a good or a bad thing. It's what we do with it. So we have to make a distinction between science and technology. And this distinction is getting blurred more and more because of economic vested interest in scientific research that kind of distorts the research from its original intent, which is absolutely pure and just desire to play with the laws of the universe, to discover the laws of the universe. It's not different. Discovering the laws of the universe is not different from the mathematician discovering the laws of prime numbers, or not different from the artist, creating a symphony or a poem or a painting. So pure science, I think, is a beautiful thing because it derives its intuition from this high place. There is a beauty in mathematics, there is a beauty in physics when Dirac discovers the positron based on the beauty of the symmetries of the Dirac equation, which has two solutions, one with positive energy, another one with negative energy. What does it mean? But Dirac is a Platonician. He says, well, if the mathematics, there is a beauty in this symmetry, there must be something that corresponds in nature. And he posited the positron. And 2 years later, the positron was experientially discovered. So there is this beauty, there is this mystery, this hidden relationship between the universe, the world of matter, between human mind, and between the realm of Platonician ideas, this place, this timeless place where mathematics have their existence. So I think we shouldn't throw the baby down the drain with the bathwater.
Thank you. You mentioned in the beginning when you were talking, you said there's one being playing all these parts. And I loved Elizabeth's statement about God as process. I think I loved it because that's what I believe. And so I wondered how you feel about that idea of God being a process rather than a being.
Both. When in the Thomas Gospel, the disciples asked Jesus, what is the light? Because they are called the children of the light. And Jesus says, it is a movement and a repose. Both. Not only a movement, not only a repose, both. In the Indian tradition, when they do arti, and they present the flame, and they move the plate, and then there is a moment of stillness, a movement and a repose. The silent presence, the background of being, Shiva, Shakti, the energy, the manifestation. They are one. Their love-making, spanda, is what we see and that which sees what we see. Again, both.
Hello. I understand myself to be an element of my experience, not separate from this unified experience that I am creating, that is sometimes likened to a dream. And as I see you as an element in my experience or my dream, my creation, the creation of my consciousness, I can only assume that you also see me as a part in your consciousness, in your creation.
No. Wrong assumption. Don't assume.
Well, could you explain about, it has also been described as a single being or a single mind, undivided, that then as it looks on itself becomes divided. Can you explain more about how multiple minds interact? Are they overlapping? There's a portion that appears to be shared in understanding and a portion that's very, very private. Could you just explain a bit about how those minds interact?
Okay, so I take just this question, yes, how do various minds interact? And there is a portion that is shared. It is true if I say there is a bottle here and there is a glass here and there is water in them, we kind of all agree, at least I hope, right, that is true. In other words, that's a part of our experience that is shared. On the other hand, our thoughts under normal circumstances and our bodily sensations and feelings, we don't share them, right? They are hidden from others. All of that, so we need to have an explanation for the sharing of the world among us. And there is a hypothesis, which is the existence of an external world independent from each mind, which accounts for this, what is what philosophers call the intersubjective agreement, the fact that you and I agree that there is a glass and a bottle on this table. That's not the only possible explanation. The other explanation would be that there might be a multiplicity of minds, and that the only existence of this bottle and this glass is our perceiving, our perceptions of them, which are different for each of us, right? Because each of us seeing these objects from a different position in space, from a different angle, each of us has a different image of them, a different perception of them. So there is only one bottle, but as many perceptions of this bottle as there are minds looking at it. So we could do away with the bottle and say the only existence of the bottle is in the minds. So there are two seemingly opposing possibilities. One, the bottle exists independently from mind, and second, the bottle exists only in the minds. But then how to explain the correlation between the mind, this intersubjective agreement? So the possible explanation is this. All the minds are co-created by a universal consciousness, and which is the only perceiver through all the minds. And because it is the only perceiver, it's easy for this only perceiver to create the perceptions in a way which is harmonized and which is consistent. And that explains this shared element. So we have two different possibilities. One, an external world, and the other one, no external world. But in fact, if we look at consciousness, that which perceives, that which is hearing these words in this moment, what I call consciousness is the reality, that which really hears, perceives. And we can convince us, if we investigate, that there is in fact only one reality. Non-duality, that's what non-duality is about, you know. The definition of non-duality is there is only one reality. Now, if there is only one reality, it follows that consciousness being defined as a reality that perceives, it is the same reality that perceives in each of us. But that's not all. There is something in addition to it, that it is also the reality of this bottle, whatever this kind of existence this bottle may have. You see? So whether there is an external world or not, if there is only one reality, and therefore consciousness is this reality, it doesn't make a shred of difference. You see, that's the beauty of it. There is no contradiction between these two possibilities. It's a little bit like the duality between a wave and a particle. It's neither and both. It is just in order to be able to have a mathematical model that we use these two possibilities. But in fact, the reality is neither and both. It's beyond that. So here also, the existence or non-existence of an external world, it's a human-made thing so that we can communicate and speak. But in fact, it doesn't matter. It all boils down to the same, provided we understand that there is only one reality, non-duality. So I hope I haven't put everybody asleep yet. So if you are not yet asleep, we could talk about the connection of that with Einstein's equation, and that will do it. No, just kidding.
Okay, so my question. And a lot of scientists, they have this fear of death, so we're kind of going into a little bit of like a mechanical kind of potential way to...
Who has a fear of death?
I don't know, like Kurzweil, like he kind of believes like we have to become part robot, part human in order to kind of transcend this idea of death. Scientists, right. Some scientists have a fear of death.
A fear of death.
And they want to kind of, prolong life by kind of becoming half human, or I don't know about half, but partial robot, partial human. And I just have a question about, like, we come into this world right now, there's a lot of toxicity around, whether it's verbal pollution or food pollution in our water and our food. But, like, I have a cut on my hand right now and it's healing itself. So my question or my wonder is, if we're living in a world without anything that's toxic, words that come to us are beautiful and uplifting, the foods that we eat are all nutritious, can we kind of transcend this idea of our body dies, and we can kind of go into a place where this mind over matter gets us to a place where, okay, I'm going to stay in my body for X amount of times, and we get to kind of choose when to leave our body if this mind over matter is really that powerful?
I'm not sure I'm getting the question. Mind over matter. This whole dilemma, does mind originate from matter, or does matter originate from mind? They are the two confronting schools. Nowadays in our culture, with science, it's tilted towards mind emanates from matter. It's emergent property. And in other culture, it's the opposite, or in New Age thinking, it's the opposite. Matter is made of mind. Well, there is a third possibility, that both mind and matter are in fact made of consciousness. You see, that's simple. Then we don't have to worry. In other words, because we are certain that consciousness is real. You see what I mean? We are never certain that mind is real. By mind, I mean that which we perceive. For instance, during the night dream, we are in a forest and we have this tiger running after us, and we wake up and we realize that the forest and the tiger were just figments of our imagination, right? They were not real. However, the consciousness that was the witness of the dream was real. And it is the very same consciousness which is the witness of the waking state after we wake up, right? In other words, the only thing we can be absolutely certain of is consciousness. All the rest is less certain. So the safe way to deal with that is to start from our experience. All we know to be real is consciousness. The rest we don't. So we don't know for mind to be real, we don't know for matter to be real, we don't know for mind to be a product of matter or for matter to be a product of mind. But in our experience, they both appear in consciousness. And consciousness is real. And we have this deep intuition that there is only one reality, you see. So if there is only one reality, if consciousness is real, then consciousness is this reality. And whatever else there is in this universe and beyond can only be made out of this very same reality or consciousness. One thing, one flavor, one reality, one being. That's non-duality, you see. So we don't have to worry about mind over matter, matter over mind. Now regarding this the main origin of disharmony in this world is ignorance. And the best thing we can do to create harmony is to liberate ourselves from ignorance, and then to try to express this harmony in the way we feel, in the way we perceive, in the way we think, in the way we relate to each other, in the way we act, in the way we decide, etc. You see, if we are too ambitious, and if we want to save the world, history is full of world savers who have turned bad, Hitler, Stalin, and a few others. So we have to be careful. I think we have to set our priorities right to find first, the first priority should be to liberate ourselves before we can liberate others, if that needs to be done. And I have doubts about that, because it's great fun the way it is already, you see. Consciousness over everything. Consciousness over mind, consciousness over matter. Once you understand that consciousness is the reality there is, you understand at the same time, or you experience at the same time, that you never die, because you were never born. The reality never dies. It's only our limitations that die, our seeming limitations. And then this sense of impending doom vanishes. That is liberation. Liberation from being something that is caught in becoming, that is caught in the jaws of time. That's why, and we cannot liberate ourselves from the fear of death without the experience of our deathlessness. That's the only way. And we cannot experience our deathlessness without knowing what we truly are. And we cannot know what we truly are without seeking this knowledge. So we have to take in reverse order. We are here, most of us. Grace has brought us here. We have been gathered here. We didn't gather from our own separate will. We have all been gathered for this beautiful purpose of sharing our reality in words, but also beyond the words. I mean, who cares about the words, you know? The words are just there to, like, to get the mind satisfied. Like you throw a bone at the dog so that it doesn't damage the furniture. So that's what my words are. Bones.
A question.
The real communication takes place beyond the scenes, you know?
Hello. I'm familiar with your teacher, Jean Klein. Did you have any shift in your experience of consciousness at the time of his physical death?
It's, well, it's something very private. I visited his place on the next day because I happened to be, I happened to be on the road, and when I heard the news, I was close to his place. So serendipitously, I came and saw his body, and his body was not my teacher, obviously. And sometime later, he appeared to me in a dream. You know, during the last years of his life, he had a very devastating stroke, and he couldn't really communicate. For instance, he thought I was his first cousin. He knew I was familiar, and he would speak to me in German, and like if I were his first cousin. He didn't know whether he was in the United States or in Europe, for instance. You know, so he really was. So there was this difficulty in communicating through words. So a few weeks, I don't remember, months after his passing away, he appeared in one of my dreams. And in this dream, I was driving, I was being driven, and in front of a building that was like a hospital. And I was in the car on the street, and he was beyond a window in one of the rooms. And he couldn't speak directly to me, but there was a person next to him who said he would like to say thank you. So it's something very intimate, but you ask a question, here you go.
Do you understand?
Thank you. I would like you to explain what is meant by the title of this.
What is meant by?
By the title of this session, The Innocence and Spontaneity of Non-Knowing.
I don't know.
Yeah, Francis doesn't do abstract, doesn't do title, doesn't talk, he only answers questions. So we made this up to put it in the program. Busted.
Francis, this is a serious question. I'm ultimately...
Tom, sit down.
I have one question. Seriously, is what you're ultimately saying for all of us, I don't matter and I don't mind?
Beg your pardon?
Is what you're ultimately saying, I don't matter and I don't mind?
No, what I am saying is the opposite. I matters. The rest doesn't. What we are matters. What we are not doesn't. You see, that's very different. So, if you believe to be a separate individual, that makes me laugh. You see, that doesn't make me sad, but it doesn't matter. That which matters is that which we truly are. That's the only thing that truly matters. That matters a lot. But what does it mean if we say that something matters? We say that something matters in contradistinction with other things that matter less or that don't matter, right? But if I, consciousness, reality, is the only thing there is, how can we say even that it matters? Because there is nothing else to compare it with that wouldn't matter in comparison, right? So it's wasting our saliva to say consciousness matters. It's better to dance or to celebrate or to tell jokes. That matters.
Sorry.
Life matters. You know what we do with it. It's about celebrating. It's about getting rid of our chains. And our chains are these believed to be in chains. And then to dance, to celebrate. We are each of us with our own God-given skills, talents, and enthusiasm, and desires, and all of that is beautiful. We are all the different flowers on the meadow, and we each discover our color, our shape, our function. You know, life is an exciting adventure.
Stand up, okay. I have been listening to many lectures here, and for me, which has been trained in chemistry, mind and matter as like the two poles of the same thing, like a magnet. You have two poles, and mind and matter for me are the two poles of the same substance. And in this context, I would say that there is no consciousness without matter, because there is no consciousness without us. What would you say about that?
False.
Yeah, well, I want to hear more.
Yes. What is it that you call matter?
Matter is what we are made of, which means atoms, and they have like different levels of energy. And at the very subtle level of energy, it's mind.
You seem to know a lot. So you say atoms. What are atoms?
Waves. Waves of information.
In fact, you know more than me and than most scientists because we really don't know what atoms are. We have models, what they are, with a nucleus at the center, electrons at various levels of energy around them. In turn, these fermions being made of quarks and gluons, in turns, those being kind of levels of energy of a certain quantum field, but at the end of the day, all of those are models that tell us how what we call electrons are, but they never tell us what matter is, you know. The purpose of science never answers the question what, nor does it answer the question why. It only answers the question how by giving us models, mathematical models. That's all. But we'll never know what matter is. If we believe that we know what matter is, we are kidding ourselves. No real physicist, real scientist is going to tell you that he knows or she knows what matter is. Nobody knows.
To my understanding, matter are waves of information. And this is what I know, because when there is a biological information that is contained in atoms and molecules. So there is something there.
And what is information?
Information is what we understand about the world. Therefore, I say that there is no consciousness without matter.
So you are telling me that matter is made of what we understand about the world? Because you say matter is made of information. Information is what we understand about the world. So because of this transitivity in your discourse, it implies that matter is made of what we understand about the world?
Matter is our connection to the world, yeah. Yeah, it's our how we understand the world.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to go back into that. We just have to agree that we disagree.
Okay.
And,
thank you very much.
We will leave it at that.
We have time for one more question.
Thank you for being here. I have not serious question.
Good.
What's your thoughts on incarnations?
I agree with you that it is not a serious question.